Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. So, I want to take a moment and talk about the taxation system that's going on in Virginia right now. Now, as many of y'all probably know by now, our governor is Ralph Northam, a Democrat, and as many of y'all probably heard, he has very interesting viewpoints on abortion. Goes without saying, but I want to talk about how the collected taxes is spread throughout the state of Virginia. And it goes without saying, it's not equally spread out at all. So, to get into this, I want to give y'all some examples that I've seen growing up within my hometown. Now, Nova, or the northern parts of Virginia, compared to a lot of the southern parts of Virginia, it is almost alien like. They have very advanced cities and they got like charging stations for electric cars almost on every block. I mean, it's straight up something alien like. Something I myself or many people who live in the southern parts of Virginia, we don't see this stuff. We know we have nothing like that here. And in fact, it takes us forever to get anything done in this part of Virginia. And what I want to talk about is a few examples. So, when I was a kid, long ago, there was a bridge that crossed the New River, but and it was connecting the parts of Radford up to getting on Price's Fork, heading to Christiansburg or Blacksburg. Easy enough. For those who know the general area, you should know what bridge I'm talking about. Well, it was old. It was a standard, metal overlapping bridge, green painted steel, but as time went by and due to different types of construction practices, the bridge just couldn't support people anymore, couldn't support the cars. So eventually they had to demolish the bridge. But it took years, and I mean years, for them to actually do what needs to be done. So what they did do is here's the old bridge. They built a new bridge with a new road going back and forth. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a couple $1 million project, but eventually it did get to what it needed to be done. But the thing is, when they were creating the new bridge and creating the other road, oh my God, the one road stayed closed for years, almost over a decade, I believe, until they finally decided, okay, we're going to come in and we finally had the funds to destroy the old bridge and we're going to build a new bridge and make, a two-road street, one way going this way and the other one going that way. But what I'm talking about here is it took them years to get the funding to destroy the old bridge and to build a new one on top of it. Now, granted, they could have just built the new bridge and left it as is. And, for some of y'all saying, you can go, well, at least they built the newer bridge first. And to that, I also say, fair enough. But the problem is it took forever, a very long time. And another good example is there is a place in the town of Radford that long ago, it was kind of I don't think it was a recycling plant of sorts. But the railroad company, they used to drive by with their trains and they drop a lot of bits of scrap metal and other environmentally poisonous materials. And the train station kept doing this, but eventually the recycling center or the factory, I can't remember which one it was, but it shut down. And unfortunately, the train station company, they didn't do the right thing and they left all of that material there. And as time went on, it eroded into the soil and into the waters of the local area. And the reality is, it's poisoned the land. Like, it has legitly poisoned the land so much. Now, the city of Radford was going to build housing, some kind of development over there to help, boost Radford on the map. But when when the newly elected governor found out what happened, what we would have to do is he would have to spend millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to clean up the land, because if he just did land, housing development, every single house would have to have some sort of a giant built-in for filtration system. People wouldn't be able to grow crops or such on the land because it's contaminated. They wouldn't be able to use the water and the ground because it's contaminated. That's why you would need the filtration system. It was going to cost millions of dollars to do this. And to make things even more crazy is it's going to cost millions of dollars to clean the land. Now, personally, I do believe that they should go ahead and just clean up the land, but the thing is, we are not getting any support from the state government about this. But what's funny about this, what's happening in Rafford, we can't get the funds to, heal this part of the land that was destroyed. A very similar incident happened up in the northern parts of Virginia, close to D.C., and somehow they magically got the funds to be able to fix their land and deal with their problems, while the South, we get to suffer. Another example is in the town of Dublin, you had an overlapping bridge over a road, and once again, very similar to the example I gave you with the bridge over the New River, it was old. It was basically falling apart, but it stayed like that for years. The town of Dublin just couldn't get the funding to basically fix the bridge, so it stayed that way for damn near 20 years, and this year, in 2019, they finally started to get around to fixing it, though the bridge has remained damaged and collapsing for as I said, 20 plus years. They just couldn't get the funding. And if you go further past Dublin, you'll reach the town of Pulaski, and for anyone who has ever been to Pulaski, it is almost as if time has just stopped and time has forgotten the town of Pulaski. And that's not the only place. There's been many other places, parts of Dublin, Galax, Hillsville, a lot of areas in the Appalachian part in South Virginia. You go to these old towns such as in Pearisburg and Pidmock, I believe. Even parts of Roanoke. And Roanoke is a very, large town, but it's just these places are run down. Some of the building infrastructure has been there since the 50s. It's just literally time has forgotten and funding just stopped. And to make matters worse for Pulaski is their taxes has thoroughly increased, and it's only going to increase more. Now, what happened is the Pulaski Middle School was collapsing. It was collapsing, and eventually the main support beam in the school was starting to rust and deteriorate. They had to do something. It was unsafe for the kids to go there. Now, they had two options. They could build a completely new school for about $50 million. That's a lot of money for Pulaski. That's a lot of money anywhere. But there was also another school that was still doing well and support-wise, the Dublin Middle School. All they had to do was fix it up and expand it a bit, and it would have been roughly $35 million. So, that's a good chunk of money, $15 million that they would have saved. But when the people voted, they voted to build a whole new school. Now, I get it. The vote was made, people decided, but at the same time, what I'm saying is a lot of the politicians that were in favor of just building the new school, they were pulling on people's heartstrings. They were like, let's just build a new school. Our kids will be great. It'll be super advanced, super tight, the best school. But the thing is, Pulaski's already poor enough as it is. And the fact that they did this and increased the taxes that's going on the people, it's only going to hurt Pulaski in the long run. And there's many other cases which is happening throughout the southern parts of Virginia. And to make matters worse, Pulaski has a very, very bad drug problem, and they thought the best way to help people of Pulaski was to open a government-run meth house, where they give people methadone instead of actual meth. For those of you who can guess, methadone is like meth, but it's a much lighter drug. But at the same time, people are still going to get the drugs. The idea that they have with it is that they can monitor people and slowly help them get off drugs, but they're still doing drugs. Shit. Due to my time in the service, I have had the privilege and opportunity to travel across the nation and throughout my home state. There's plenty of areas that just have been forgotten by time. And there's even some military outposts that also are very run down, especially in the southern parts of Virginia. But for some reason, when you get closer to the northern parts, everything is so much nicer. As I said, it almost seems alien-like. And I truly mean that. Most, people from the south of Virginia, when we travel up north, we don't recognize it. It doesn't look like Virginia anymore. Like, some of the prime examples is I got stopped going to work by a bunch of cows. A bunch of cows were literally in the middle of the main road, not moving. This is Southwest Virginia problems, people. You go up north, well, it's cities, urban area, development, all high-speed rails. We ain't got that down here. And every time people tries to construct something like that, the money just doesn't go. Now, some of y'all might be asking, well, where's all the tax money going? It's going to Nova. And this is actually an issue that many Southwest Virginians do agree on. And when I say this, I mean it's not just people on the right. It's also people that are on the left. Even though our political ideologies are very different, most Virginians of both demographics do meet in the middle and say, yes, they are forgetting us. Nova is getting all of this funding, and we are literally dealing with scraps. And an incident has happened recently, which they are going to tax the south parts of Virginia even more so than they're already forcing upon us. So if you look at a road map, Highway 80 or Interstate 81 goes through most of the southern parts of Virginia until it reaches up towards the north and goes into West Virginia. They are adding a 7 cents gas tax on every single county that 81 is connected to. That's Dublin, Galax, Hillsville, Rafford, Pulaski, Blacksburg, Christiansburg. Just a bunch of counties that are connected to 81, and we use this for our everyday lives. And now all the gas stations are going to have a 7 cents increase in taxes. Pulaski can't handle any more taxes. They're already getting taxed out the ass building that new school, and now they're adding more tax to their gas? Look, folks, if it tells you anything, there is a Volvo manufacturer in Pulaski right now, and that is the only thing keeping Pulaski alive. There is just no infrastructure anymore. There's no reason. I mean, you look at pictures from the 50s of Virginia Pulaski, and it was very prosperous, very thriving, but then something down the line, whether it was governors or people just making foolish votes, they decided to shift all the funding to Nova and Enrichment to enhance themselves. It is no lie that the politicians up in, I'm going to say Norman's cabinet per se, they have their favorite territories of Virginia. And they make sure that their favorite territories are taken care of while the rest of us are just footing these bills. Here is some ridiculous taxes that has been placed on us. The town of Christiansburg has a green tax. Now, this is what this means, all right? Follow through. This is a real tax, and it's bullshit that they're putting on us. So when you own a house, you have, square foot. Your house is so much square foot. Well, the town of Christiansburg has came out with a tax that says for each amount of square foot of your private property that does not have vegetation, grass, a tree, a bush, anything that is plant-based, they are going to charge you, I think it's a couple cents for each square foot of development. And in some of these towns in Christiansburg, they have been there since the 50s. And, this generation didn't build it. We didn't construct it, but now we're getting taxed all because there's not enough green and vegetation around our properties. You know, I can go to my hometown and I'll use Hardee's as an example. So, Hardee's has the 2 for $4 special. So, you can get the 2 for $4 special, which, the meal is $4 even, but of course you got to pay tax. The town of Radford, the tax is about 7 to 11 cents. Not too bad, but could be better. But you go to the town of Christiansburg, go to Hardee's, get the 2 for $4 and get the same thing, and the tax is almost 21 cents, if not a little bit more, because the taxes is high. You go to many parts of Virginia and you can see many examples, like in Wytheville and such, where time has stopped. We have been forgotten by our local government. Our local government just sees us as cash cows. They see us as just money to support their favorite states, because Nova gets a ton of funding. I understand Nova has much more bigger cities than the south parts of Virginia, but at the same time, we're fucking citizens too. Our roads are being destroyed. We got places that are just falling apart that we need help to fix it. But we keep getting tossed aside. We keep getting these new taxes placed on us. We keep getting told that we are dirt wrong, and we keep getting told, yes, we're working on it, but yet nothing ever gets done. Instead, we're sitting here almost, I don't want to say dealing with the scraps, but that's the best example I can give you. And folks, if you look at an electoral college map of Virginia, you can pretty much guess what Nova and Richmond is, and then what the rest of the south of Virginia is. Hence, there's a lot of red in the south and a lot of blue up north. And the fact that a lot of our governors in most recent years have been Democrats, and they have been shifting all the money towards their base, which, I get it. You want to put the money where the votes are. You want to put the money with the people that's going to vote you into power. But at the same time, as I said, the rest of Virginia is getting forgotten. And they keep trying to impose all these laws on us. Like, y'all don't understand exactly how gun heavy the southern parts of Virginia are. Some of these areas, it's a part of our culture. And they're sitting there telling us that we have to give away our guns, or they're doing all these types of crazy taxes on us. They're even trying to pass something about doing a gun tax, and they're trying to basically make things very harder to get weapons. I know that's probably not the conversation I should be talking about, but what I'm trying to say here is we can't handle any more taxes in the South. We have a lot of old neighborhoods, like houses that have been built in the 50s, if not the 30s, that are still standing, miraculously. We have a lot of old towns, bridges, just they need to be replaced and fixed, but we just can't ever seem to get the funding because all the state funding is going up to Nova. And now with the 7 cents gas tax that's happening on, Interstate 81, many of us Southwest Virginians, both left and right, we have very serious doubts that any of that funding from the interstate, the taxes that they're going to take from, is going to go towards the interstate. You can look up, Interstate 81 has a lot of wrecks, and there's a lot of places that are just completely just garbage on it. It needs maintenance. It needs to be maintained. But they keep forgetting about us. Then said they want to put a toll on 81, and guess what? Their locations for the tolls just so happen to be on the poorer side of Virginia, and now they're making all these poorer counties pay 7 cents more in taxes. And, for a lot of the tractor-trailer drivers that drive up and back, that's more money out of their pocket they're going to pay. Because, you think, oh, 7 cents ain't bad. It's nothing. Well, you add it up over a year, and, if it's going to be expensive. The purpose of this video that I made, folks, is if you haven't picked up already, I am traditionally conservative. I do hope that I'm more in the middle, but it's just I'm seeing what's happening in a lot of these governments with high taxes, with things like this, and it's always the highly blue areas that receive all this crazy amounts of tax money to improve their cities, but always the traditionally red, as well as a lot of the rural areas, we just keep getting forgotten. I'll use West Virginia as an example. Our neighboring state, it's a very poor state. It doesn't have a lot of towns and cities. There's not many big cities, and they're a coal mining state. They can't handle high taxes and such. That's why in the state of West Virginia, a lot of their taxes are low, because their citizens just can't afford it. But I will give West Virginia props where props is due. They have a lot of tolls on their interstate going through, but at least they make damn well sure that the money they make from the tolls goes to exactly what it's meant to be. But here in Virginia, especially the southern parts, we're being forced to pay all this taxes, and it ain't going to us. It's going to the government's favorite child. And if it tells you anything, Nova is right up there, up to Washington, D.C. That should answer a lot of questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I really do appreciate y'all watching this. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I do plan on making more videos like this, especially as election season comes up. Until next time, folks.